Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever sent a quick text to your partner and then felt this agonizing, almost physical crash when they didn't reply for a few hours? Well, today we're going to unpack that exact profound tension. We're looking at a deeply exhausting conflict that practically all of us feel, even if we haven't quite had the words for it until now. It's the literal clash between our primitive, deeply wired biological needs for immediate intimacy and our modern, institutionally trained patience. Why exactly do we feel physically halted when a connection is delayed? Let's find out.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the neurobiological clash, mono versus multi-systems, the history of stretched patience, the PrEP strategy bridge, and finally, relational alignment. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. The neurobiological clash. The coffee machine dilemma.
Picture this. You're seeking a simple, unconditioned glance or smile from a partner, just a tiny moment of immediate connection. But instead of getting it, your movement feels completely halted. It's like you hit a literal brick wall. This happens because human machinery simply burns out when a system stretches our public patience while simultaneously starving our private bond. When you're deprived of natural, everyday micro-interactions, your brain literally interprets the lack of a secure connection as an absolute evolutionary zero. This is not just some emotional annoyance, right? It results in a very low tolerance for panic and deep systemic psychological exhaustion. And it matters because this is the root cause of so much of our modern burnout.
Section 2. Mono versus multi-systems. The biological divide.
Let's look at the mono layer first. This is our private, intimate pair bond layer. It's driven entirely by dopamine, immediate pursuit, and the localized jackpot rewards of intimacy. Natural patience, it just does not exist in this time frame. The mono context window is fiercely rigid and hyper-immediate. It deeply, deeply resists being delayed or diluted because if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, a delay in connection meant a loss of safety and survival. Your mono system is relentlessly scanning the environment for immediate reassurance.
Now contrast this with the multi-layer. Think of a Vertex engineer working at a high-level tech institution like Google DeepMind. Their environment actively trains their brain to use serotonin to artificially expand their patience. They are neurologically conditioned to delay gratification, literally waiting months for a complex project to compile or massive long-term collective goal to be realized. It's actually a bit humorous when you really think about it. Our brains can be perfectly serene waiting for a high-stakes, terrifying email from a boss, but we will enter absolute meltdown mode waiting 10 minutes for a text from a partner.
When these two systems collide, sparks absolutely fly. You've got raw, dopamine-driven mammalian impulse demanding immediate safety on one side, hitting the brick wall of a serotonin-driven brain entrenched in delayed institutional logic on the other. Your immediate biological imperative is quite literally smashing into institutionally trained patience. Raw emotions simply cannot be processed natively by a heavily conditioned multi-intellect. It creates this devastating friction where one person feels starved and the other feels chaotically attacked.
Section 3. History of stretched patience. A geopolitical scale.
Here is a super surprising fact for you. This tension isn't some modern tech-era invention. Back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, industrialized nation-states revolutionized schooling, but not just for education's sake. They did it to artificially engineer mass patience. Governments desperately needed civilians trained to tolerate highly unnatural environments. We're talking everything from the repetitive daily grind of rigid industrial factories all the way to the extreme, unbearable stress of trench warfare. They essentially hijacked our biology to scale geopolitical power.
When you break down how these layers function, the public multi-system is highly malleable. It can be stretched by political conditioning and serotonin to wait for macro rewards. But the private mono pair bond operates entirely differently. Because it's driven by dopamine, the intimate pair bond has incredibly low malleability. It is a rigid, inflexible context window that fiercely resists being delayed, diluted, or trained out of you by any amount of state schooling or heavy institutional demands.
And this leads to a pretty devastating historical conclusion. You can train a human to wait months for a military victory, sure, but you absolutely cannot train the mammalian brain to remain indifferent to the immediate vulnerability of its primary attachment bond. When the world wars tore millions of people away from their partners for years at a time, it stretched that intimate context window way past its breaking point. It proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that deep, systemic burnout occurs when the private, monogamous bond is starved. We simply aren't built to put love on hold for the sake of the institution.
Section 4. The PrEP strategy bridge. Translating chaos into data.
So how do we actually bridge this gap? Knowing that this biological window cannot be stretched without causing massive burnout, how do you communicate your primitive needs to someone deeply entrenched in modern institutional logic? Well, you definitely cannot rely on unfiltered biological thirst. Approaching an institutionally conditioned brain with raw, blood force emotion registers as a chaotic threat. Their system just won't know how to parse it. Instead, you need microsecond precision. You need a strategy that logically articulates the connection.
Enter the PREP framework: point, reason, evaluation, point. It's a highly structured logic method. By using this step-by-step logic, you're essentially translating your biological desire into readable data. You mathematically bridge the gap between biological thirst and institutional patience by giving a heavily conditioned brain a structured roadmap for exactly why an immediate connection is required right now.
Think of PrEP exactly like a tech compiler. It takes the raw, chaotic emotional data of your dopamine-driven monosystem and packages it securely into the data-driven multi-language. This allows a highly intellectual, repetition-aware brain to securely read your needs without seeing them as an overwhelming evolutionary threat. You're handing them the exact logic they need to safely authorize an emotional response.
Section 5. Relational alignment. Avoiding the defensive pushback.
By utilizing this framework, you achieve a non-aggressive relational alignment. You see, it presents your needs as appealing data, rather than an emotional demand. It completely avoids aggressively shattering their internal model. And crucially, you aren't blaming their workplace or the harsh realities of their institutional environment, because you deliver this reality wrapped securely in structural logic, almost like a harmonious software update. There is absolutely no structural reason for the other person's system to defend itself or push back. You bypass the heavy-handed tension of typical social politics entirely.
Ultimately, this logic aligns your brains on exactly when to care. Because regardless of how much high-level institutional conditioning someone has, the biological imperative of the pair bond remains incredibly unyielding. By speaking their language, you successfully unlock that shared mammalian jackpot reward, satisfying the private mono-need while deeply respecting the public multi-reality. You fixed the coffee machine dilemma by finally learning how to properly press the button.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. Take a moment and really ask yourself, how does your own monobiological need for immediate connection interact with the multi-conditioning of your modern workplace? Are you actively balancing the scales? Or is your human machinery quietly burning out while you wait for a reward that your biology simply cannot comprehend? Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, keep questioning the systems around you.